G'day everyone, welcome back to Nick Learns Thai. I'm Nick. In this video, I want to talk about my efforts to try and think in Thai, and that includes both, just thinking in my head in Thai, and also my efforts experimenting with thinking out loud in Thai, including my daily vlog series, Thinking Out Loud in Thai. Let me just bring up my notes here. So I'm going to go through the what, the why, the how, and my results so far. So the what to start off with. So it's about thinking in Thai, and that includes this method of thinking out loud in Thai, or thinking out loud in the language that you're learning, which I got from a video. Rob MacPherson, I think his name is. Yep, Robin MacPherson, sorry. I'll put a link to that in the description. So he's got a couple of videos where he talks about language learning and trying to think in the language you're trying to learn. He talks both about sort of thinking in your head and also thinking out loud on a particular practice that he developed, where he's talking about sort of thinking out loud in the target language. So that was the first sort of thing that piqued my interest. And I just wanted to try and sort of use that method. And then I thought, why don't I make a video series out of a daily vlog to both, I guess, to demonstrate what I'm doing, for this channel, and also to help me to stick to doing it regularly as like a accountability type thing to make sure I'm doing it at least every day. And that series is about sort of 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes per video. So I'm putting a little bit of time each day. But before I do the video, I usually think about what I'm going to say in the video. So that's kind of also, I'm doing prep, I'm doing the thinking work kind of before I do the video, although I don't always do it, or I don't always, think about it a lot. So yeah. Also with that series, I put a link in the description as well. So I started off posting it on this channel. So you may have seen the first sort of 15 odd videos on this channel. Then I got a little bit worried that I was going to be kind of boring or annoying subscribers, because most people would come to the channel to hear my thoughts on my experiences learning Thai, but not necessarily practicing Thai, in all Thai videos, etc. So I thought I'd sort of split it out into a separate channel. So I've created another channel, Nick Speaks Thai, you know, not not fluently or anything, but just my experiences in speaking Thai and practicing. So I'll put a link to that as well. So that's where the latest, I've actually got all the videos on that new channel, including the original ones and the newer ones. And we're up to 25 so far. Today, when I put today's video out, that'll be 26. So closing in on 1 month of this practice. And yeah, I think I intend to continue with it. So I think it's been quite helpful, but I'll go into that more of that in a moment. And yeah, also another thing to say about the what of this kind of thinking idea is sort of two different sides of it. There's like deliberate and natural. So certainly with this method I got from Robin MacPherson, it's very much like a deliberate type of practice, he's sort of talking about it from the perspective of developing speaking skills alone without speaking to another person or a native speaker or another learner. So he's talking about it like as a deliberate practice, and sort of talking to yourself, thinking to yourself is a deliberate practice. But then there's another side of it, which is just kind of developing the skill or the ability or I don't know, what else you would call it, the practice, I guess, of just thinking naturally in your target language, Thai in my case, instead of in the normal language you would think in. So that's talking about the internal monologue that you have, which I'm aware that not everybody has this actually. But I think most people, some, I don't know, 90% plus or something probably of people have kind of an internal monologue where they talk about, talk to themselves about, plans and what's going on and this and that, the next thing. So that's the other side of the coin. It's like turning that internal monologue into your target language, at least for some activities or some types of thoughts. So that's kind of the what. Now the why. So I think that the main whys, certainly for the deliberate side of things, is around extra practice. So, it's not always possible or easy to line up practice sessions with native speakers or even other learners. So whether it's traveling to Thailand or, doing a language exchange or finding a Thai friend to practice with, etc. You've got to do the scheduling and stuff. So there's certainly an appeal to having activities that you can use to develop your speaking without having to worry about doing that scheduling and whatnot. So it's just kind of extra practice. Finding gaps in your knowledge. So along with that practice, where you're practicing sentences, how to say things, how to describe things, you're inevitably going to come across things that you don't know how to say, words that you don't know. And this is a great way to sort of bring those out to the forefront. And particularly if you do this a lot and you're going over and over the same topics over and again, you'll notice patterns in the things like, oh, that's a word that I wanted to say several times, several days in a row, or several times within the last few weeks. That's definitely something I should try to get an understanding of, how to say that. So you can go and ask, a Thai friend or a tutor or something, or look it up somewhere. So yeah, it's a good way to both identify just gaps of knowledge in general, but also to kind of hone in on those things that you might use more often and that are also gaps, so that you can go and find a way of saying that. The other thing I think that makes sense here is kind of continuity. So like, for example, maybe in your normal life, you would watch a video in Thai, maybe you do some reading in Thai, but then you go have a conversation in English, then you think in English, then you, I don't know, do some work or something in English, watch some TV in English, then you come back and do some Thai later. So you're getting Thai throughout the day, but I do think there's more power to not just putting in more hours in Thai, in your Thai language, but also having some continuity there. So this, I guess, is just taking one of those pieces, which you might be doing in English, and then switching it to Thai. So you've got a little bit more continuity. So now you're doing, you're watching a video in Thai, you're doing some reading in Thai. You're still doing, still got friends and stuff, family in English. So you go to talk to them in English, but then you're thinking in Thai, you're reading something in Thai, you're watching something in Thai. So it's just kind of taking another piece of things that you might have done in English and switching it to Thai. So you're getting a little bit more continuity and you're getting a bit more time as well, of course. Now the how, so I guess there's like 3 or so different levels that basically Robin MacPherson in his videos, he describes these levels, but I think it's fairly self-explanatory, at least the first 2 parts of this. So those are sort of starting off about like describing your surroundings. So particularly this made sense to me because a lot of the times when I'm doing my thinking, it's when I go out for a walk. I like to go out for a walk most days. And it's a great opportunity to do some thinking, of course, on what else going on. And one of the things you can do quite easily is just describing your surroundings. So, there's that tree over there. I wonder what sort of tree that is. And I haven't noticed that shot before. It must be new. And look at that guy. He looks kind of strange. Blah blah blah. Any kind of like random thoughts about what's going on around you that you probably have anyway in English. Not groundbreaking stuff for anything, but certainly relevant words, relevant structures that you can practice and do. So that's kind of the first place to start. The next way to go is, I guess, more abstract, talking about plans, thoughts within your own life. So like, I guess, planning out the rest of the day, that's something I would often do, or reflecting on something that's happened in previous days and making plans based on that, or reflecting, I should have said this and this, or I should have done that other thing differently, or whatever. I was going to go there, then I decided to go here instead. Was that cafe a good idea? I don't know. Stuff like that. And then the third level, which is more something that I got from that video from Robin MacPherson, was thinking more about opinions and perspectives. And this, I guess, is like a more deeper skill within, within your language you're trying to learn, is being able to like express your opinions about different topics and stuff. And I guess it's more something you could use in a more deep kind of conversation. And so this is an opportunity to practice that. So what he actually recommends is, I guess, talking about your own just general opinions and perspectives is one aspect, but then he specifically says, pick book or a TV show or a movie that you like, and like pick a scene or a section of that, and then think about the characters in that scene or whatever, and trying to think about their perspective or their opinion on the situation. And maybe they have an opinion or a perspective that's presented in the media as it is, but then you think about, an alternative opinion they might have, or the opinion of another character that's not expressed in the movie or whatever. So I actually did this with my Thinking Out Loud entire series, where I picked a Seinfeld episode that I quite like, the Chinese restaurant episode, for any Seinfeld fans out there. And I just kind of picked apart the scene over several different days, like many days, probably over a few weeks even. And I was just thinking about the different perspectives of the various characters, and inevitably I'd go off on a tangent. So I'd start thinking it and talking about one aspect, but then that would kind of lead me off on a tangent. And yeah, it was quite fun and interesting thing to do. It's a little bit more difficult, I guess, than some of these other things. But yeah, I think it makes sense to me as a method. So I think I'll definitely do more of that. Okay, actually one other aspect there on that how, or on the same lines of the perspectives and stuff, is also just manipulating those opinions and perspectives. So yeah, I guess sort of presenting the opinion or the perspective that you want to present, right, for that character or for yourself, but then kind of, I guess, manipulating that. So, or whatever it was the other way around, or whatever actually that didn't happen to this person, happened to the other person, how would that change the perspective? I guess along those lines. Okay, and then in terms of results, sort of final part to discuss here. So in terms of thinking in Thai, just in my head. As I mentioned, I've been sort of practicing it, particularly while I'm out walking, obviously in the shower and stuff like that, other sort of down times. I've definitely noticed that through doing the deliberate practice that I've found myself thinking in Thai at other times, kind of unconsciously. So particularly I noticed a few times, which was interesting, was when I woke up in the morning, I would just find myself thinking in Thai. So it was kind of a weird experience. And I guess, I was doing it and I sort of noticed it and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. I had some other situations where I woke up suddenly. I talked about it in some of the daily vlog videos where I actually had a cramp. It happened twice within the week where I woke up because I had a cramp in my leg. And I was, interested to find that I was also thinking in Thai in that situation, which was interesting because you might think that because it was kind of a traumatic experience, I might go back to the more natural state, which is English. But for whatever reason, I was thinking in Thai in that situation. So that was interesting. Now, yeah, I mean, it's great. Well, it's interesting, good, I guess, to notice that practice is leading to me doing it naturally. I don't know if I can say that it's helped me in any particular way. I can't draw a direct line between the increase in me thinking in Thai and an improvement in speaking or anything like that. So I guess that remains to be seen as to whether, well, I guess I'll continue doing it. It remains to be seen whether I'll be able to ever draw that direct line. Some of the other things are a bit more direct, which I'll talk about in a second. So yeah, it may be the sort of thing that is helpful, but it's difficult to find a direct evidence of it's being helpful. Or it might be one of the things that's actually not that helpful. I guess it would be hard to know. It seems to make sense that it would be helpful, but it's not always measurable. So I guess with a lot of these things, you're trying lots of different ideas, you're improving, but it's difficult to know exactly like the contribution of each thing you do to your improvement. So you're kind of just doing lots of different things. You're seeing the improvement. You say, okay, I guess I'll do more of those collection of things that I'm doing and to see more improvement. And then you change it up if things aren't, if you're not seeing that improvement. But it's often maybe difficult to say, okay, what's the specific contribution of every little thing? So maybe this is one of those things where I won't actually ever know. But going to the daily vlog specifically, where I've been thinking out loud. Now, I'd sort of changed from just purely expressing things I've previously thought about, or just sort of thinking on the spot, to, because I mean, it's not exactly thinking just to myself, obviously, because I've got an audience. I know I'm speaking to a camera. So it's a little bit different from just purely thinking by myself to myself. So I did think about, as if I was talking to someone. So yeah, it's a little bit separate from, I guess, that practice of just purely thinking for yourself. And it's about thinking and then, presenting in that as a thought to the audience. But I do also approach it quite, completely unscripted, although often I have thought about the ideas before, but I haven't like scripted it out specifically. And you'll see that by watching the videos where I'm thinking as I'm going, and that in fact allowed me to recognize some specific mistakes that only occur when I don't know what I'm going to say next, sort of thing. Like using the English word like, which I guess I must do in English, and then kind of importing that into Thai. And then another one was using the English word and, or some kind of shortened version of and between sentences, I guess as a filler word. So yeah, that's something I've noticed specifically based on the fact that I'm thinking, so I'm talking and thinking, at the same time, as opposed to like pre-planning something. And that's been the thing that's most most noticeable as advantages from this whole thing, is identifying knowledge gaps. Well, there's two things actually. So there's spotting mistakes, which I just mentioned. So the fact that I've recorded it means I can go back and look at it, and then I can actually spot the mistakes, which I may not have been aware of. So that's actually more like an advantage specifically of recording it versus just saying it. And the other one is identifying knowledge gaps. So I've sort of mentioned that a few times, and that's definitely something I've noticed as a benefit of this whole practice. So you wouldn't need to record it to get those, to notice that, because when you're talking, you want to say something and then you realize you can't say that, or you can't think of the right word to put in there to describe that thing. So, and particularly if you're doing it kind of every day or regularly, you will come across those words or those phrases that you want to say regularly and can't say because you don't have the right words. And actually, the other side of that coin is thinking I knew how to say something. One example would be like perspective. I thought I knew how to say perspective, and I was using a certain word over and over, and then I kind of thought to myself, am I really saying that correctly? So then I went and got it checked and realized I hadn't really been saying it correctly. So then I could go back and also correct things. So it kind of goes both ways with things I directly couldn't think of how to say, and then going and checking the way to say that. And then also something I thought I knew how to say, but then realized I wasn't really correct. So there's also an opportunity to improve that. So yeah, I guess that covers pretty much everything about this kind of method. I'll put all the relevant links and stuff below. Would I recommend it? I think definitely I recommend the thinking out loud and the recording. Well, the thinking out loud for sure, for identifying the gaps, and it's something you can do alone. You do also want to have interactions with native speakers and tutors and whatnot as well, I think, because you do want to avoid developing speaking skills alone, which are wrong. So be careful with that. But certainly filling in the time you have in between opportunities to speak with native speakers and others, other people that know what they're talking about, filling it in with this kind of practice on your own, I think can only be a good thing. Identifying knowledge gaps in particular is something that I found as a good benefit. And then specifically of recording and then watching back is the opportunity to spot mistakes that you might not have noticed otherwise. And I suppose you can also, show it to a Thai friend or whatever to analyze and find mistakes. Confronting, a little bit scary to do, but I think, yeah, it's great practice. You don't have to put it on YouTube like I'm doing. You can just record it for your own, benefit. But yeah, I definitely recommend doing some variation of this. And the other thing is, it's particularly the thinking part of it. doesn't really take up any additional time because you're probably going to be thinking in English anyway throughout the day. So it's just taking some of that time and switching it into Thai or your target language. So yeah. All right, I don't know how long went on there. Hopefully it's not too long, but thanks for watching. Hopefully it was interesting. If you have any thoughts on this, please write a comment down below. Hit subscribe if you want to hear more. Hit like, share it with a friend, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks very much.